Why do we find ourselves falling back into sin? So I was praying about that this morning, and I felt like the Lord told me, vigilance. We lose to ambushes because of a lack of vigilance. And vigilance is the action or state of keeping careful watch for possible danger or difficulties. Oftentimes, the reason why we fail or we fall into temptation or whatever, or we have disunity in a family or in a group is because we lack vigilance. We are not aware, we are not paying attention to the schemes of the enemy. We don't think there is a fight, or we don't think there is a battle, or maybe we feel, okay, I feel like that's a lot of the reasons why people who are doing so good for a long time end up falling, because of lack of vigilance. They've forgotten that they are in a war. They've forgotten that there's war all around them. Man, what is a good example of a lack of vigilance, say, in a military perspective? And I would say that a good example, now if people are watching this or whatever, like, don't get offended about this, but I believe that a good example would be Pearl Harbor. Now, there are conspiracy theories and all that stuff, and there may actually be some truth to a few things. Apparently, there's a book called 1941, 31 Days That Shaped America and the World, I think is what it's called. And in that book, a guy apparently uncovers an FBI document that was classified, and they declassified it, and it shows that they knew that Japan was scouting out, basically, Panama Canal and Japan and one other place for strategic moves. The difference was Japan never declared war, right? But was there war all around America? We can say, well, they're not messing with me, but there was still war all around. All around, there's different levels of vigilance, right? So maybe they were being trained at the base to be vigilant and watch out. And even if you read a story, some of these people were saying, yeah, they were told if you see a telescope out there, or not telescope, a periscope coming up out of the water, it may not be ours, you know? So, I mean, there was levels of vigilance, okay? But even in the military, there's different levels of alertness. I can't remember what they're called. You know what they're called? Alert states. DEFCON levels. There we go. That's what I was trying to figure out. So apparently DEFCON 5 is the lowest alert, and DEFCON 1 is the highest alert. But basically, that's a measure of vigilance. Be more alert. Be more on defense. We're at this level, you know? There is danger now, right now, present. But it's lack of vigilance that causes us to be caught by surprise. Why would it be a surprise? If you were surprised, that means you weren't expecting it, which is lack of vigilance. So a vigilant person is going to expect an attack at any point. They're going to be on high alert. And that's what it is. We let our guard down. That's what people say. It's just a phrase we say, but we don't even think about what that really means. Don't let your guard down, you know? No, but really, we are letting our guard down. We're letting our defenses down. If you're going down your old streets, you immediately know, I gotta have a higher level of alertness. But what happens is, we pull completely out of the war. We have the American ideology of 1941 of isolationism, you know? You know what's the problem with isolationism is that it becomes very self-centered. The reason why the people were in isolationism in 1941 was because America was wounded by World War I, and they didn't want to be hurt anymore. They didn't want the economic pull on it. They didn't want any of that stuff. They didn't want to be affected by the war. It's kind of like what we do at the barracks in a sense. We were wounded at home. Now we come here to separate, get healed, right? But there comes a point where we become no longer isolationists. We become internationalists, you know? We are no longer thinking about ourselves, we're thinking about others. We realize that the war is raging on out there. Just because we're here safe and secure doesn't mean that the war's not still going on. So there has to be a point. The only reason to pull away and recess is to prepare for war again. It's like the off season for football. Your championship winners are defined by their off season, not by their not their playing season. If you're playing and then you get in the off season and say, well, we don't have to. No, that's the time to prepare for in season. It's not the time to relax. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a point in our lives, even when we are doing good, we're doing great, we've been walking righteously, we've been doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden, we get tempted with temptation and we fall. And we want to know what happened. The reason why is we just simply forget that we're in a war. You know, here's some numbers for you. When Pearl Harbor was bombed, they lost 2,459 people. They died. 1,282 people were injured. They had 8 battleships and 4 of them sunk. Every one of the battleships got hit and critically damaged. The point is they were not ready. That is the point. So whose fault is that? You know, it comes back down to that idea of extreme ownership. We have to take extreme ownership and say, was there anything we could have done to prevent such a catastrophe? There's not so much a matter of pointing the fingers, but oftentimes when people go through issues, they want to point the finger. Well, this happened, that happened. That was December 7th, just so you know. December 7th, 1941, 7:48 a.m. Pearl Harbor. The Japanese came in, started bombing the place. They were not ready at all. The guy was on his battleship, and he got the alert came on the intercom, and they said every man to their battle stations, and seconds later the torpedo hit it was too late. They were way too late. They said, oh, I gotta get ready. Have you ever been in that situation too, where you start to get tempted with sin, and you're like, start praying in tongues, and and then you fall anyway? You're getting prepared at the last minute. Our play, the game, or the war, the battle, is completely defined by your off season. The actual battle you're going to encounter is going to be defined by your off season. We got to get filled up. We got to get overflowing with the Word of God in our lives. We can't wait till the last second to try to win. We've got to prepare before that. When Pearl Harbor happened, before that, America was passively at war. And that's the story of Christians. They are passively going to church on a regular basis. They give their tithes, but they're not at war. They haven't declared war against the devil, really. They want to pretend that the devil is never going to come. He's never going to knock on their door. And that's why a lot of times I think, well, the devil just wants us to stay out of the picture. And that's why I find it, you know, that guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the admiral, the Japanese admiral, he says, I fear that we've only awakened a sleeping giant. Perfect picture. Don't you realize you're a sleeping giant? Don't you realize you're a giant? See, what happens is that America had the secret weapon that would end the war, but they sat by passively and allowed it to happen. And when they woke up, then they declared war, and it was over. But I think that's what happens with us as Christians. We have a secret weapon that would just demolish the enemy, but we're just sleeping. And then we get ambushed.